Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Battletome for Age of Sigmar. This is the Bonesplitterz, and they are shiny. Spiky bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. I'm Baer, and this is Age of Sigmar. If you haven't checked out Age of Sigmar, at least take a demo. It's a great game. It's not 40k, and once you get your brain around that, you know, it's a very rewarding game as far as I can tell, especially now with the General's Handbook being out and the points being available to play more fairer games. So, second Battletome out since the big switch over to points, and now we're seeing basically the same thing as we saw with the Sylvaneth Battletome, where basically there's a lot more upgrades and things to make the game a little bit different, but also kind of go along with that whole like players wanting options, players wanting points kind of thing. So this is another, you know, basically codex or army book for Age of Sigmar. Okay, it's 110 pages, just like, you know, just like an army book, just like a codex for 40k or whatever. They go for about $50 retail. Now, if you want to get into playing Forces of Destruction, you can pick up their War Scroll Grand Alliance book, which is basically all of the War Scrolls for that particular faction, which includes also the ogres. Or I guess I don't even know what they're called anymore. They keep changing the names on me. I can't keep it straight. It's crazy. And they're changing like fluff too. And I'll show you that here in a second. But so you can pick that book up for $16.50. You can also download the War Scrolls for free as well. But if you want the new content, the new contents are going to come in the Battletomes. And it's probably worth it. If you're interested in playing that army, it's probably worth picking up the Battletome anyways, just because it's got a lot of fresh content in here. So here's the overleaf, like what's going on, where we're at, and then here's the contents. And again, it's very familiar if you checked out our first look review of the Sylvaneth Battletome. This is very similar in consistency and content to everything that comes in there. Now, a little caveat here, this particular video is a first look review. I'm going to show you everything that's pertinent that you need to know to make a decision whether you're going to buy this book or not. But we're not going to get into tactics. I mean, I might throw out a few things that I noticed that I thought were cool, but we're not going to get deep into tactics, and we're not going to review all the units in this book. We do that in a separate video, usually comes out the next week as our tips and tactics video. So it kind of goes over more in depth. I can spend a good chunk of time on it, usually about half an hour or so, and do my research and do my cross references, look for some combos, give you guys the advice you need, you know, if you want to play these guys right here. So typical layout that we saw, again, with the Sylvaneth, you got the Bonesplitterz section right here, which is basically like, hey, who are these guys and what do they do? What are they all about, right? Then you get the Mobs of Bone, which is basically more on specific factions, which we used to call them clans, now they're called Rukks, R-U-K-K-S. And more like paint schemes and kind of overall profile, or, you know, just kind of like showcasing the individual models. Like this is what they are, what they're all about. This is who they are and the specifics to them. Then you got the Great Green Tribes, which is your sexy painted model showcase, or centerfold, so to speak. And then it goes into the Savage Hunting Grounds, which is it's a departure from 40k. We saw this actually with the a lot of the supplements that come out. It'll be like a narrative kind of battle section. So they'll give you a little narrative battle, talk about this battle that took place between Faction A and Faction B. In the case of, say, which one was it here? The Claws of the Sky Lizards. That is the Greenskins, or the Bonesplitterz rather, versus the Lizardmen, right? So that kind of gives you an idea, and then it goes into the actual battle, right? That you can recreate this fluff piece battle. And we saw that in Kalian, we saw that in Monka, we see that in a lot of the supplements now, which is really cool to see. So that's more of the narrative aspect. And then it gets into the actual specific rules for them. And look at that, there's 10 rules for these guys. It used to be when you got a Battletome, there wasn't any special rules for, you know, the particular faction in Age of Sigmar. And I'm hoping that GW puts out a book you know, down the road, maybe halfway through this year, hopefully, or halfway through this 6 months, this half of the year, so to speak, that catches up, you know, say the Stormcast, you know, the Bloodbounds and stuff like that, to having these new exclusive allegiance abilities, as well as some wizard arcane items, some items for your generals and stuff like that. So that gives GW an opportunity to sell us another book, which I think it's kind of needed, because all of these things are getting special abilities, and then we have the special ability, the generic special abilities, like if you want the, you know, the overall allegiance to order special abilities and upgrades, that's in the General's Handbook. So maybe they're playing it close to the cuff, but I don't think so, because they're putting all this stuff in here. So something tells me that they have these rules and they're sitting on it, and we'll see a little campaign book come out that catches up those other books. So, you know, yes, it's selling stuff that we should have had in the first place, but then again, you know, these games, we're lucky to get second and third editions of some of these games. You know, Starfleet Battles, I imagine those folks that play that game would love a new edition of that game. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, it's selling the stuff, but it's kind of stuff we need that goes along with stuff we have. You know, the game changed so much in a year. I think I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, and I'll totally buy the shit out of it. And then it gets into the War Scroll Battalion section, which is these are your rules, basically. The War Scrolls, you know, you got Data Scrolls in 40k, you got War Scrolls in Age of Sigmar here, and then it gets into, or excuse me, they put the battalions first, and now they have this new type of battalion called a War Clan Battalion. Or War Clan War Scroll. I don't know what we're supposed to call these things, but they're basically like fantasy's version of a detachment, where it contains multiple War Scroll battalions in a War Clan, and we saw in the Sylvanas book, it was a War Grove, right? So you kind of see what they're doing there. They didn't really put a label on it, so I don't know what to call these things. They are technically a War Scroll, but they're more than a War Scroll battalion. They're a War Grove or a War Clan. So I don't know. Somebody come up with a name to label these things, because I'd love to say it for the rest of my life. And then it gets into the War Scrolls themselves, which are all the rules for all the models that are particular to this specific faction. Now, all of these guys in this book, I'm pretty sure all these guys had War Scrolls in the Order, or not the Order, the Destruction Grand Alliance book. Okay, so there's no new guys in here that you couldn't download for free or anything. It's not like the Sylvanas book where there was brand new content for brand new models. It's a little bit different from this one, because there are no new model releases this week, just the book itself, which is cool to see that they're doing all of the factions inside of the Grand Alliances. But, you know, I guess you could make the argument that it's a little disappointing not to see new model releases, but they did combo some of the Savage Orcs into 10 packs and some of the Boar Boys into 10 packs as well. So that's really neat to see, right? So they're making the effort, and there is a lower price point out for buying basically the 20-man squad versus the 10-man squad versus the 5 and the 10 respectively for the Boar Boys and the Savage Orc Boys. So that's kind of cool to see. So they're making it a little bit easier on folks, and then of course, you know, they come out with the brand new Start Collecting boxes, and there's 5 of those coming out next week. Okay, so enough about all that. Here's your contents. Let's kind of skip ahead to some of these pages to kind of show you basically what you can expect in here. Now, granted, this is standard GW graphics, awesome looking stuff. They basically got, hey, here's the background for these guys. You know, here's their glyphs and, you know, their language. I mean, it's just amazing graphics, great looking stuff here. Here's where the lore starts on these guys right here, and it gets into all of that, and then it gets into their profiles and their war paints and very particular things here, and Bonesplitterz, and, you know, all these guys, and then it gets into the special characters, basically the bestiary section, and then it gets into the specific clans, which are called Rucks now, right? Try keeping all that straight in your head and all these other books, right? And then it gets into the Great Green Tribes, which is your sexy painted models centerfold section. You know, get your mind out of the gutter. I know what you're thinking. And then it gets into the next section is the narrative section, where it shows you, it gives you, hey, here is the Great Beast Hunt. Okay, cool. So their whole thing is taking down monsters because they're trying to free the spirit of Gork and or possibly Mork, and that's, you know, how they do it. When they kill a big monster, they get an ability, which you're going to see later in the book here. So then they're talking about the battle. And then it goes into the first one, the first battle, the first fluff battle. Well, here's how you can recreate it on the tabletop. Boom, right there. So really neat to see. And we saw a lot of battle plans and stuff in the campaign books, but now there's faction-specific ones in here, which is really neat to see, right? Then it gets into all those, and then we skip to the actual rules. This is the 11 pages of rules. Now, we're not going to get into all of it. Suffice to say that it is just like, the Sylvaneth book. So you've got, basically, they're explaining how allegiance works. So you can either be allegiance, destruction, or allegiance Bonesplitterz with a Z. And then it gets into, talking about command traits, the artifacts of power, the war scroll battalions, etc., etc. So the battle traits are right here. If your allegiance is Bonesplitterz, then you always wound stuff on a 6, because remember, they're monster slayers, that's their thing. And you can actually save against mortal wounds. Who knew? On a 6, because their paint protects them. It's silly, but I like it. And then it gets into more stuff here, like monster hunters. There's specific, hey, this is what happens if you kill a monster. There's an ability here that confers to them. And then command traits for your general. You can either roll a dice, or you can pick it, depending on who you choose to be your general. And remember, it doesn't specifically say in the rules themselves, the 4-page rules, that if your general dies, you have to pick a new general. However, if there's a command trait, it seems to say that you must select a new general during the battle. If for some reason you must select a new general during the battle, immediately grant a trait for them. Now, I couldn't imagine. I assume you're just always supposed to have a general. Someone's always supposed to be in charge, right? So I assume, it doesn't say it in the rules, again, that if you lose your general, now this may be in the FAQ. I may be messing up right here because I actually haven't studied the FAQ itself yet, but I would imagine, judging by the context of that paragraph right there, if you lose your general, you pick a new general, and then you would pick a new trait as well, and still be able to use the Inspiring Presence. Then it gets into their own specific, what do you want to call this? I guess lore magic. It might not be the right term there, but they get their own spell lore, just like the Sylvaneths, which is really neat, and it focuses on doubles, like rolling doubles. You get an extra ability, and they put this little caveat in here. Rolling doubles only counts for unmodified dice rolls, so keep that in mind when you're kind of going through all your stuff. So you can either roll on the spell chart here, or you can just pick it, or you can pick everybody to have the same one, okay? So kind of just like Sylvaneth, which is kind of neat. And there's some good abilities in here, like straight up mortal wounds to heroes. Over here, you what was this? Always reroll rolls of 6 to hit. So basically, if you can't kill something, you always can wound it on a 6. So you could always hit it on a 6. So that definitely helps get the attacks through, right? And then it's just good stuff here. I think there was one where you can move like triple speed or something like that, and there's some few caveats on that, which looked definitely. I'm going to take a closer look at that one here for the tips and tactics video that we're going to go over. Here's the artifacts of power. So here's the magical artifacts that are only for magic wizards or any. Excuse me, those are over here. Those are the arcane ones. These are for any Bonesplitterz hero. They can get this, they can choose it, or they can roll for it. And remember, if you take a battalion, you can equip another hero with another artifact of power for each battalion that you and each hero you have available. So that's kind of, something to keep in mind when you're building your army list. Here's the arcane ones. These are for the wizards over here. Very cool stuff. I like the one where he turns people into squigs. From the mortal wounds, he gets +1 to his casting for the rest of the game because he's harnessing the magical juju power of his latest squiggly pet. I love orcs. They're the best. And then it gets into what? Oh, okay, the War Scroll Battalion. So there's 6 of these bad boys. I guess 9 if you want to count the war clans, which are basically like the detachment type deal. So I don't know what to call them yet, but somebody come up with something, and we'll call it that, right? So the first one is the Savage War Clan, which looks to have a bunch of different clans, clans basically made up. So that's all of these right here. So this is one of those. It's kind of like more of a formation than a detachment. And then you get into, hey, you can field a specific clan right here. Same deal, more specific clans with specific abilities. There's another one. And then here's the War Clans, which are made up of, this is kind of like your detachment type deal, where you get mo beta abilities over here, but sometimes they let you slide in somebody from a different faction. They don't on these that I noticed. It's all just Bonesplitterz, and Bonesplitterz. But we saw with the Sylvaneth, you could bring in any other order unit, and there was one with some dwarfs too as well, which I don't understand. But we're gonna go with it. So there's all that, and then in the very back, we got all of their war scrolls right here with no pictures, but just those. Now, what I was thinking was, and this is just my 2 cents, if Games Workshop sold a pack of these, basically cut, kind of like they're doing in the new Age of Sigmar starter with like, you know, on some decent cardstock with a little border, you know, border cut, I would totally buy a pack of those. Like, these are basically the data cards for Age of Sigmar. Like, give me these and I can lay them out on the table. I'm still going to buy the book, but I want something on the table, you know, kind of like War Machine. I want a game aid, so to speak, you know what I mean? Like, the app is great, but I still gotta like type in my punch code. Somebody texts me, I gotta read it. Somebody sends me a cat picture, I gotta read it. But I just want to be able to like literally pick it up off the tabletop, something small, and just read what my unit does. And then eventually I'll learn it, and that's cool, but at least I have it right there to show to my opponent too. And I don't have to dig through, oh, here's my phone, you know, or hey, here's my whatever. You know, it just makes it easy for both players. And I really like this idea. Like, if they made these with some little graphics and sold a pack of them, like, oh my gosh, I would be all about it. It couldn't even be that expensive, because you figure with where they're selling the Grand Alliance books for, you know, $16.50 for all the destruction stuff, or, you know, okay, I guess the Chaos one's like $35, but, you know, break it down by faction or something, you know. I don't know. It's just my 2 cents. I would totally buy the shit out of it. I might even try to figure out how to make some of these myself and print them out myself on cardstock, you know, at a printer or something like that, just to have that extra ease of play, so to speak, on the tabletop. And then, of course, the 4-page rules in the very back here. And that's it. It's another great faction book, I feel like. If you were waiting for these guys to come out, it's great. If you play Destruction, it's great, because now you've got these guys as well as the Iron Jaws. And I think those are the only 2 Battletomes right now for Destruction. There might be an Ogre one. I'm actually not. I don't think there is now. There isn't, because that'll probably come out next week with a new teaser. So we'll probably see that one here soon as well. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out my General's Handbook review, because that did come out this week, but we already got it early and we've already reviewed it, so it's up on here, as well as the Sylvaneth Battletome 2.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.